Day of Dragons opened its Kickstarter in 2019 to notable YouTube coverage and a whopping $500,000 in funding by the end of its campaign. This was absolutely insane for a no-name developer, and it's likely that some people thought this was too good to be true. It was a little later on that those fears were validated, with multiple videos from YouTubers going into detail about how the lead developer was unprofessional, inexperienced, and a big fat liar. The same demo that Jao had claimed was a result of years of hard work was also recreated in a matter of days. I won't go into too much detail about it, as there are obviously much better videos out there for that, and I don't want to get things wrong or spread any outdated information, so go watch those if you're curious. And so this, on top of players being banned from the game in Discord for criticizing Jao and his tech demo, led many people to the conclusion that the game was a scam, and so they left the project. One YouTuber in particular, Anthomnia, received a disgusting threat from a member of the Day of Dragons community regarding his dog, simply because he said he was going to disengage from the game. Skip ahead to 2021, and Day of Dragons suddenly makes its big return, where after 2 years of waiting and a heap of game-tainting drama, they would restore their image by asking players to buy the game at full price so that they could play as one dragon. Nice. The game itself was still very bare bones and was even accompanied by a paid DLC, the only way to play anything that wasn't the Shadow Scale unless you were lucky enough to get nested in. So unsurprisingly, this would be called out by tons of people over the course of years because, you know, it's greedy. To which Jao would graciously respond after releasing their third playable, "I predicted that people would continue to call out our scummy decisions, and they did. They will never be satisfied." And now, after 2 years of no content, Day of Dragons officially releases from its early access stage. So, is this game any good? No. Let's quickly address the elephant in the room. The update is technically not out yet. Yes, they have released an update titled 1.0, but it does not include all the 1.0 content. In fact, over half of the content they promised for the update got delayed a mere 2.5 weeks before the release date. This includes 3 of the 5 playable creatures, every AI creature, multiple notable mechanics and upgrades to old mechanics, and the map isn't even finished yet. In fact, they are apparently not going to finish the map until they add a fantasy mode later this year. Yes, I am aware that the delays were due to health complications, but that does not suddenly make releasing a third of your update the right call. They have estimated that it would have only taken them another couple months to release everything at once, so they should have just done that. Because now people are seeing the trailer, getting the game, and then being rightfully angry that most of what they saw isn't even available. And yes, I am aware that this review might grow outdated within those months. However, they are confident in the current state of the game being release-worthy, and so I will be judging it as such. However, to satisfy the "you should have waited before making the video" crowd, I will play it again once everything is added and give you an update in the pinned comment if necessary. Honestly, Day of Dragons' ability to repeat the same mistakes that multiple other games were criticized for years ago is commendable. Let's start with growth. No surprise that it was designed in one of the most unfun ways we've seen so far for this genre. You're slow, you're weak, and you can't even fly until over halfway through your growth. And yeah, you're a baby, so this is kind of fair, but you must be able to hide, right? Nope, not really. All of the free-to-play dragons are naturally too large and or too brightly colored to hide in foliage, even as babies. Your drinking speeds are also horrendous, calculated on the Flamestalker to 85 seconds on full thirst. That is almost a minute and a half of you just drinking. So good luck making use of your intuition and some lucky timing to sneak in your essentials. And hey, don't forget that there's a dragon that can quite literally go completely invisible, so that empty pond you thought you looked out with might not be as empty as it seems.
Let's land pleasant. It might not be as pleasant as it sounds.
Shut the fuck.
Food is no less of a pain to deal with. The sound of you fighting with bugs is bound to echo much farther than what you're comfortable with. Where did this guy come from? He's massive. And when you do get the chance to eat them, they don't even provide much. Mushrooms seem like a good alternative until they poison you without any warning. This is generally pretty easy to rest off, so it's not a big deal, but at that point it's just an inconvenience for the sake of it. Oh yeah, did I mention the Shadow Scale can go invisible? So, I kinda lied about it being hard to hide your dragon. The Shadow Scale can sit in the middle of the open, and as long as it's not moving, that cloak will never run out. With this, I was able to sit at watering holes with multiple other dragons around, and they were completely oblivious to my presence. Also, as I'm writing this, you will stay completely invisible even after you start drinking, so the small shimmer that might give you away barely matters at the moment. Overall, your choices are either to keep trying and hope you get lucky, there's little skill skill involved when it comes to growing successfully. Have friends who are already grown and can protect you, or just play the shadow scale. Day of Dragon's growth is not difficult. That to me implies there's something you as an individual are doing wrong when you fail, and usually that isn't. When I die, I don't feel like I did anything wrong, and when I succeed, I don't feel like I did anything right. The shortest free-to-play growth is also, 2.5 hours? It's luck dependent, it's tedious, and worst of all, it's another waiting simulator. The game offers nothing for a young dragon to do outside of the whole killing bugs thing. Maybe you'll go for another baby dragon if you want to risk that, but neither of these things are fun. Once you learn that the spiders have an attack delay, you know you can just run through them and bite and you won't be hit. And the ground combat is laughable. I thought we got rid of spam biting and running in circles years ago. Speaking of things that were fixed years ago, people dying in water means you don't get to eat. Now the people who have actually played this game might be saying, silly Shifty V, you can drag bodies. First of all, bodies in deeper pools sink almost instantly, and they will not float back up. You cannot grab them. Second, we're still on the topic of baby dragons, which can already kill very few things and can't even carry half of those. The Isle of Rima managed to solve this with meat chunks 3 years ago. How we managed to regress as a genre is beyond me. And third, the ability to carry is not communicated to the player in any helpful way. The game does not list carrying in the keybinds. There is no in-game manual to help new players. And the one prompt that would make a player realize that you can carry bodies can only be seen if you press the specific button combination required to do it. So you have to know how to carry to be given any hints that you can carry. Do things get any better when you're grown? You're given access to flight, which is a mess. It's janky, the camera controlling is a nightmare, and the attempt to make it realistic has just been a detriment to the enjoyment of the game. This game's flight is somehow less advanced and enjoyable than Aragon for the PSP. Having little time to correct yourself in a game where one big mistake can mean losing hours of progress feels awful, especially when you can get injured, grounded, or waste stamina purely due to the game being unresponsive. I didn't get a chance to try out aerial combat, but I've watched videos and yeah, it doesn't seem fun. I definitely do not want to keep playing just for the slim chance that it's better than it looks. You also unlock nesting, which again I haven't been given a chance to try. I already spent 2 hours waiting around just to grow. I'm not going to do even more waiting just to raise some random. This seems to be a sentiment shared by many, as during the 30 hours I've spent on this game in total, I don't think I've seen a single person nesting in or offering to nest in other players on PvP. On PvE they'll nest you, because there's literally nothing else to do. But because there's nothing else to do, I don't find that game mode worth playing. This is something that could change. They do have other mechanics planned, but in its current state it is just as, if not more, unremarkable than the gameplay loop of every other game before it. Let's talk about the dragons you can play as. 2 of the 3 base dragons are fire type with the exact same ranged attack. One has thermal vision, which is the only way to catch a shadow scale, though none of them seem to use it, and the other rips fire armor from the monstrous nightmare. Then there's the Night Fury clone, and I don't want to get into the whole lazy design thing right now because a lot of people just appreciate being able to play as their favorite movie dragons, and that's fine. But the lack of willingness to experiment with dragons, one of the most malleable creatures in mythology, says a lot to me about where their heart is when it comes to this project. They don't want to create or inspire, they want the marketing and they want the money. That old DLC dragon I mentioned was the Acid Spitter. It's not really a dragon, I think it's a drake, and it runs on the ground, it doesn't fly. Please do keep in mind that they raised $500,000. They did not need to lock half of the roster behind a paywall. The Acid Spitter continues to provide the most unique experience due to being fully built for playing on the ground. And now, of the 5 creatures that were meant to accompany this update, only one of them will be available for all players. The Bioluminescent Dragon, or My Little Pony Dragon as I like to call it due to its standout design and plastic texturing, is a Kickstarter exclusive, which means you can only really play as it if you paid for the Kickstarter 4 years ago. The Blitz Striker will be another DLC. So I'm in the middle of editing this video, and they have a website where you can pre-order DLC dragons. Not only that, but there is a 3rd DLC dragon that is already being advertised. The Brood Watcher needs to be unlocked with a quest, and the Magma Elemental requires the sacrifice of an Elder Dragon. I don't even know how to get an Elder Dragon. Once this update is done, there will be 8 creatures in the game, and a newer player will only be able to play as 3 of them. It's restrictive, it's annoying, it's boring, and in the case of the 2 DLCs, it's greedy. If you don't like being called out for adding them, maybe don't. Players with these creatures being able to nest you in doesn't exactly make up for the fact that you don't have access to them. It's a tired argument I've seen a dozen times. Let's just go through the process, shall we? First, there has to be, for example, 2 adult acid spitters, 1 male and 1 female. Then they have to find each other and want to group up. Then they have to want to nest. Then you have to be the person they choose to invite to their nest out of all the other baby birds begging for it in the global chat. Then you either have to survive by yourself, or they have to waste their time caring for you. And only then are you able to play the acid spitter until you die. Once you do, the process starts over. This is not reliable. Most average players don't even seem to want to nest, and clans are focused purely on nesting in their own friends to make them stronger. Oh yeah, did I not mention clans? The game lets you group up en masse with no interspecies restrictions, and this mass grouping can be used to provide more than just safety in numbers. The more you no-life the game, the better the genetics of your children will be once they hatch. So clans will just grind this out until they have an overwhelming advantage over the rest of the server. Even in games like Rust and Ark, which are also built around grouping up for maximum efficiency, the benefits you receive are mostly attributed to the fact that there's more of you. A solo player will have a harder time, but is still only really outnumbered as opposed to being actively weaker. Whereas in Day of Dragons, tryhard clan members are able to farm for extra buffs and pure stats despite already being much better equipped and likely more skilled than your average player. And with combat looking to be more reliant on your stats than your skill, at least when you're not in the air, you're going to be actively punished by the game simply for not being in a clan or large group. Day of Dragons is the first animal sim to be shown as a full release, and yet it includes less content than all of those still stuck in the early access stage, repeating the same mistakes that other projects have long fixed and even making all new ones. It's even more boring and bare bones than you'd expect, and the result is an influx of new players who do not hold the same biases towards the game as those who donated do, seeing it for what it is, nothing. Day of Dragons is a nothing game, and while it might improve with later content, it is most certainly not worth your time and money right now. This is something that the Be Awesome team seems to be pretty unhappy about if the constant talk of banning players for criticizing the game in the Discord is true. Now if you don't mind, I am going to go play a real men's game. Hey there, if you liked this video, maybe you could, I don't know, subscribe? You could also go down to the link in the description and participate in the new series I'm cooking up for the channel. Even if you won't, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.